How's it going, everyone? It's Javi here. So, I apologize if I'm gonna be a little bit quiet right now because it's late at night right now. It's like 12:30 and there's people near me. So, I apologize if I'm maybe a little bit too quiet. But, anyways, let's continue on. Today is August 23rd, 2018, and we're obviously tracking Hurricane Lane, which is just south of the biggest Hawaii island, and it's starting to take that more defined northwest turn like a lot of the forecast models were expecting. The good news is that the forecast track shifted slightly more west than originally expected, which will spare most of the islands from any direct impacts, hopefully, but we still have to keep in mind that Hawaii is still very well in the cone. They are still very well under hurricane warnings, and it is still very well a strong storm. And the millibar pressure is down at 939 and 145, so this is still a strong Category 4 storm. Was recently a Category 5, but I've been noticing that the storm's inner core or just its outside features been looking a little bit more ragged and lopsided than before. Before it was more of a round shape around the eye. Now it's less symmetrical. It looks more asymmetrical by how it looks now, and that is due to the oncoming wind shear that's coming from the west, as we see, as you can kind of tell with the outflow of this thing moving towards west with this wind shear due to this possible extratropical low that's bringing the gap between these two high pressures, allowing Hurricane Lane to move more to the northwest. But as you can see, the features been looking a little bit more ragged. The outside outflow has been moving a little bit more towards the west side, and it's definitely getting some shear with this, which is allowing this to weaken a little bit from the 160 mile per hour hurricane we saw earlier today. And as for the impacts in Hawaii ahead, since this storm is most likely going to take the offshore track, we still could see tropical storm force conditions for many of these areas. I think unless maybe the northwestern islands could experience some hurricane conditions, but I think it's pretty unlikely if you're in the biggest island of Hawaii, which is good news. Although you guys are under a hurricane warning, I feel like the hurricane warning was issued due to how rare this event would be for Hawaii, because even a tropical storm force, when sustained, could bring hurricane-like impacts, or could bring hurricane-like experiences to Hawaii that Hawaii never really experienced before, since many hurricanes would spare the islands. But Hurricane Lane is one of the few that came close to Hawaii, close enough to where hurricane warnings are issued for the areas. And as of what happened last night, obviously I was making the prediction stating that if this extratropical low right here moved a bit faster, this would force a gap between these two high pressure systems, allowing Hurricane Lane to move quicker to the northwest, which would be the worst case scenario, since it would bring a landfalling hurricane to the Hawaii Islands. But it seems like the atmosphere just moved just a bit more slower to where the track shifted west, which is definitely good news, and it should spare the islands. Even though GFS is still persisting on landfall in Hawaii, we can't rule out that chance still, but it seems more and more likely that it won't make landfall in Hawaii, or at least in the most southern areas. But in the northwestern islands, there's still a pretty big possibility, as I'm going to show you again, that still the northwestern islands of Hawaii are still deep in the cone, and it still could directly impact the northwestern islands of Hawaii. So you definitely need to watch that if you live in the northwestern areas, but also in the southwestern areas. But the good news is that This should weaken as it moves more to the northwest due to that ongoing wind shear that's been persisting in that area for quite a while, but it should start to weaken over time, which is definitely the good news, but it still is a strong Cat 4, so even if it weakens, it's still going to be probably a strong Cat 2, Cat 3, possibly by the time it's around the Hawaii vicinity, so it still could be something big to watch. Rain is definitely going to be a major issue for Hawaii. I would expect most of the islands having rainfall rates of about 1 to 2 inches per hour, while total storm rainfall accumulation about 8 to 12 inches, but locally in some areas I could expect 20, especially in the higher elevations. So this could be a big rain event, especially since Hawaii during the summertime is already known for tons of rain, and adding a whole hurricane over that very humid summer they would have, especially in high-low Hawaii, it's going to bring very heavy rain to those areas, and possibly some flooding and landslides are possible with this. Also, major surf, beach erosion is possible, and the typical types of stuff you would expect in a hurricane: strong winds, heavy rain, flooding, and possibly storm surge flooding from this as well, depending on certain beaches. But the people in Hawaii, you need to remember that the leading cause of death in hurricanes is flooding, whether it's inland flooding or whether it's coastal flooding. But we could still definitely see